CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.
Examining the events that impact and shape China and the rest of the world. This is the Beijing Hour. 1 hour of news and information brought to you every weekday. Now here's your host.
Dane Bigham with you on this Thursday, October the 12th, 2023. You're listening to the Beijing Hour, coming to you live from the Chinese capital. On today's program, fighting between Israel and Palestine continues as aid groups struggle to bring in life-saving supplies. China and North Macedonia are marking 30 years of bilateral ties. Another strong earthquake has shaken the same area of western Afghanistan, where thousands died last week. In business, China's cut nearly 1.2 trillion yuan in taxes and fees so far this year. In sports, the local favorite advances to the quarterfinals of the Zhengzhou Open in China. And in culture and entertainment, a preview of the 22nd Shanghai International Arts Festival. Now checking the day's top stories. Fighting is continuing between Israel and Palestine, and clashes since last weekend have caused thousands of casualties on both sides. Israel reported more than 1,200 deaths, with over 2,700 more injured. Palestinian authorities say around 1,000 in Gaza have died, while over 5,000 more are wounded. Meantime, dozens of Palestinians have also fallen victim to the conflict in the West Bank. Akram al-Satari reports.
The life in Gaza is living unprecedented misery. Overall, the horizon, very black smoke resulting from the ongoing bombardment of different places. And when you walk down the street, you see hundreds and thousands of families fleeing from the home that are being targeted and not knowing where to go exactly. If you go to Al-Shifa Hospital, you would find hundreds of individuals and their families seeking refuge and a safe haven at Al-Shifa Hospital. I was at Al-Shifa Hospital 1 hour ago, and I saw the horror and panic when the Israeli Air Forces targeted a building next to Al-Shifa Hospital. Even the patients were running, the families were running, and they were extremely terrified. And that specific building came across a school also that was used as shelter by the people. The overall sense in Gaza is a sense of insecurity. The overall feeling of Gaza is that Israel has decided to blockade the Gaza Strip and leave them die starving and keep targeting them in a carpet bombing style. And I'm quoting some of the very statements that were made by different people I met and spoke to. I saw girls, small girls, young girls who crying, asking about their father and mother in the street, when amongst the smoke they could not recognize them, they could not find them. So the life in Gaza now is characterized by loss of personal security, by loss of sustenance, and by loss also for that sense of security.
That was Akram al-Satari from Gaza. Well, Beijing says 3 Chinese nationals were killed, 2 are missing, and several were injured during Hamas's attack on Israel. Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said that China's diplomatic organizations are trying to rescue and treat the injured. He expressed his condolences to the families of the Chinese nationals killed. China has urged the parties in the conflict to safeguard Chinese personnel and organizations. Hezbollah says it's fired missiles on Israel, drawing retaliatory fire after 3 members of the Iran-backed group in Lebanon were killed earlier this week amid soaring border tensions. The Israeli military says it responded with a strike on a military observation post belonging to Hezbollah in southern Lebanon. According to Syrian media, Israel's reinforced its troops in the Golan Heights. Earlier, the Israeli military claimed that several rockets fired from the direction of the Golan Heights had struck northern Israel, and they responded with rockets and mortars. The Golan Heights is a narrow strip of land in southwestern Syria, which was occupied by Israel during the Third Middle East War in 1967. The international community does not recognize Israel's sovereignty over that territory. In response to the ongoing situation, Israel is now under a so-called emergency unity government with a war cabinet. John Gamble has more.
Prime Minister Netanyahu stepped out on stage with former Defense Minister Benny Gantz. This is a big moment for Netanyahu, who a couple days earlier had asked for an emergency coalition government to be formed. That would give him sort of increased political backing to move forward with what appears to be a coming ground offensive in the Gaza Strip. Gantz was part of an opposition, a political party, and this also helps Netanyahu, who has faced criticism both at home and abroad for his efforts to change the country's judiciary, which protesters and others said could change and radically affect what they see as Israel's democracy. Now, in the last couple of days, we've also seen increased support from the West. In part of this, today we saw U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken board an aircraft. He's coming here to Israel, and also we've seen British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly here. He actually had to run to a bomb shelter at one point as air raid sirens went off. Meanwhile, as this ground offensive is coming, there's an increased concern for civilians trapped in Gaza. You have to keep in mind that Gaza abuts the Mediterranean Sea, the Egyptian border, which remains closed, and that Israeli border, which is surrounded by that big border wall. Now, Israel is not allowing anyone in or out of the Gaza Strip at this moment. That's led activists to worry about civilians being potentially trapped in the middle between Israeli soldiers fighting Hamas militants if this ground offensive goes forward.
That was Jordan Gamble reporting from Jerusalem. Russian President Vladimir Putin has lashed out at the U.S. for sending carrier groups closer to the Israeli border. He said it'll escalate the conflict among the warring sides. The United Nations is appealing for all parties to avoid escalation and spillover. On Wednesday, foreign ministers of the Arab League called for the Palestine Liberation Organization in Israel to resume peace negotiations. The Iranian president and Saudi crown prince discussed the need to end war crimes against Palestine in a phone call. Home to over 2 million people, many speculate that the Gaza Strip could be facing the worst humanitarian crisis in history. Israel has cut off its electricity supply to Gaza, and the only remaining provider of electricity there has run out of fuel. Neighboring Egypt has discussed plans with other countries to provide humanitarian aid through its border with Gaza. The UN Palestinian Refugee Agency is seeking more than $100 million in life-saving aid for the territory. And Noor Harazin has details.
Walking through rubble of what was once his home, Azam Shamia is trying to collect and take as much food supplies as he can.
We left our homes thinking that we could return in an hour. We left our belongings, money, food, everything we owned. Now there are 50 people in the house without food, drink, water, or electricity. I do not know how we will provide food for our children. I'm searching here under the rubble for remains of lentils and rice until even a little for our children.
Shamia's home was completely damaged when Israeli warplanes targeted southern Rimal neighborhood with several airstrikes, pounding the whole area to the ground.
This place was full of residential buildings, shops, restaurants, and houses. However, now it turned into ashes and bricks as the Israeli warplanes continue striking central Gaza City.
The Gaza Strip has been under an Israeli blockade since 2007, shortly after Hamas won the elections and took power over Gaza. However, the blockade has been mitigated over the years. On Monday, Israel ordered a complete siege on Gaza, stopping electricity, fuel, water, and food supplies from entering the coastal enclave, following Hamas's surprise attack on Israel over the weekend. Meantime, Gazan fishermen and farmers are not able to go to their jobs, which means that the residents of Gaza are left with what is currently on the market's shelves. For now, Gazans have to cope with the very little amounts of food supplies available in Gaza and prepare themselves for what could be the worst humanitarian crisis in its history.
That was Noor Harazin reporting on the humanitarian situation in Gaza. Coming up, China and North Macedonia celebrate 30 years of bilateral ties.